Hello world, how are you all doing today? I hope you are all healthy and safe. So I have been thinking about what to share with you all this month during May because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm looking to only share things, pieces of information with others that are going to build them up, that are actually meaningful. When I chose to go ahead and launch another business in addition to my photography business, to coach Christian men and women with their confidence and healing after trauma and heartbreak. I wasn't looking to be just like a lot of other people who just share fluff and cotton candy and rainbows and birds and butterflies and whatever. It's really important to me because I'm working on a book. I feel like I'm a little disjointed in all of my intro, but I'm working on a book currently about my healing journey. And that book, the goal is for it to be really substantial. And when I speak to others and create, challenges or do other things to help others heal, I went through some really dark situations. And so it's important to me that what I share with others is going to really make an impact in someone's life and really help them transition into a space where they feel worthy, they truly feel value about themselves, and they know who they are and whose they are, really transforming that identity and self-image, right? So I've given it a lot of thought, and I've been a little reluctant to speak on what I feel I'm being led to share, which is the topic of forgiveness. So since November, every time I show up in different spaces, whether they are virtual or even just, running into people in person, the topic of forgiveness keeps coming up. And I keep hearing how people are wanting to forgive others who have hurt them, but they don't know how. Or they're wanting to forgive, but they can't because that person hurt them so deeply. And so my story, is very different from yours. And so it's true. I do not know what you have been through. I do not know the pain that you have felt. But what I am going to be sharing is meant from a place of deep love and, empathy for you, and with a deep desire to really help you transition your life into a space where you can flourish. And to be honest, emotionally, mentally, when we forgive, that helps us. It's not the only part of the puzzle of a healing journey, but it is very key. And forget, all of the religious reasons, if you come from a Christian background, on why we should forgive. I'm going to get to that in a minute or two, but just from a science perspective, okay? There have been studies that have been done, and people who forgive, their blood pressure is decreased. They also have increased levels of, I wrote it down because I did a little research on what the studies show. I have some Post-its here. They have an increase in sleep quality. They have better cholesterol levels. I thought that was interesting when I looked up the scientific medical benefits for forgiveness. They also, people who forgive, experience less pain, less anxiety, less depression, and less stress. So think about the times when you've been hurt or disappointed by someone. Think about how your body reacts, okay? And now think about that initial reaction that you had when that person hurt you, when you found out something or they did something to you that was traumatic, that blindsided you, you didn't see it coming, or whatever the situation was, right? Maybe you stopped breathing. Maybe you felt like you'd been punched in the gut. Maybe your brain couldn't even process it and you just kind of like were dazed out and confused. Whatever those physical reactions were, now imagine holding on to those things for years, okay? I will speak about myself, okay? There was a couple situations that I went through a few years ago. The first was I was raped by someone, and then a few months after that, I attempted to build a relationship with someone, and he broke my heart, okay? He told me he didn't want me after a few months. So having told him that I had been in a previous relationship that had been dangerous, I did lie to him, right, about what had happened to me. I didn't tell him exactly what happened. I didn't tell him I'd been raped, but I had told him I'd been hurt by someone. And so I expected him to keep me safe and to not hurt me. This was an expectation that I held him to. I held him probably, I would say, to a higher standard than I did to God in my expectation of do not hurt me. So when I was hurt, my body physically reacted. I remember I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was suffocating. I remember like my vision was blurry. This was like initially when, he broke the news to me. I physically reacted. But when I chose not to forgive him, those emotions stayed in my body because I was constantly, by refusing to forgive, holding on to that stress. So sometimes I think we become so used to holding on to the stress or the pain, we don't even realize we're holding on to it. It almost becomes a natural feeling that we just carry with us from place to place, and we don't even realize it. So here and actually my little story about what I went through in being hurt, I want to talk about 2 points. And these are 2 things that I have learned help with forgiveness. The one is choice, okay? Forgiveness is a choice, okay? We have the power. The other person does not have the power. We have the power to choose, okay? So forgiveness actually gives us power back. I didn't understand this at the time because I was like, but he hurt me, but he lied to me, but he this, but he that, but he nothing. I can choose. I get to choose. He does not get that power. I get that power of what choice I can make. Second of all, expectations, all right? When I think about my long-term relationships, when I think about my healthy relationships, like the best relationships of my life, I don't actually expect that much from those people. I think about my best friend, for example. We've been friends since maybe, I would say, the second week of freshman year in college. And I don't really expect anything from her. I mean, of course, naturally, subconsciously in my brain, I think she should not, disrespect me or whatever, right? But I am not really expecting her to keep me safe. I'm not expecting like these big things from her. I was expecting a really big thing from this person, this man. I was expecting him to not hurt me, to keep me safe. I was expecting something he could not provide for me. I'm not saying that we have low expectations and that we just become doormats and accept anything from anyone. I'm not saying that we should not have standards. Standards, that might be something that I make a video about at a later date. Standards and expectations, not necessarily the same thing. So I would say check our expectations. And I'm going to speak from a Christian perspective because really my healing journey has been through my faith as a Christian woman and my relationship with God. And notice I'm saying relationship with God. I am not saying religion, because religion will have us all messed up. But relationship with God is going to help us, and it will guide us, how we should proceed. And so if I am putting expectations on another human being, and it does not have to be in a romantic relationship. It could be a coworker, it could be a boss, it could be a best friend, it could be whoever. If my expectation for that person is higher, and I'm putting them at a higher position than I'm putting God. So instead of trusting God for my safety, instead of looking to God for my protection, I'm looking to a human. I was wrong for that. Okay. So I have learned in my forgiveness that it's a choice, and I have to have I won't say low expectations, but not put too much emphasis on those expectations. All right, so moving along, I also would like to share something else that I have learned. And another part I have learned that's vital for forgiving others is forgiving ourselves, okay? So after the rape, while it was not difficult for me to forgive the man who raped me, that was a process I was kind of able to work through and release and give over to God to take care of that situation with him, because as a Christian woman, it does say that in Psalm 89, verse 34, I will not violate my covenant or alter my word that went from my lips. And he says that he will be our protector. So if God has vowed that he will keep his word to us and protect us, and it also says that he will be our vindicator, he will vindicate me. Let me see. Am I forgetting a verse? Then that means I can trust God to take care of this person. So I just kind of released him to God pretty easily, trusting that God would, fight for me. But I did not release myself from responsibility. I judged myself very harshly for who I had chosen to become involved with, and I judged my body very harshly. If I could have ripped parts of myself out of my body and separated my body from my spirit, I would have done it. But I couldn't. So in order to forgive and move on, I had to forgive myself first. Okay. I had to stop judging myself. I believe there is a reason why in the Bible it says, and people always focus on the love thy neighbor part. Well, it says actually love thyself and love thy neighbor, right? Love thy neighbor as thy love thyself. I think I've got it right. That means before I can properly love my neighbor, I have to love me. So when I was holding a grudge against the man who hurt me, who broke my heart, I couldn't love him properly. I couldn't because I didn't have any love for myself. I actually despised myself. I despised everything about myself. I despised my mind for making the choices it made. I despised my body. I despised also my character because I had lied to this new man who I was trying to get to know. I had actually kind of lied to him about what specifically had happened to me prior to us getting to know one another. And so then I felt that I was a liar, and I beat myself up over and over and over every day. And if I cannot give myself grace, if I cannot figure out how to be kind to me, how in the world can I be kind to someone else? I don't understand that what is needed, right? When I'm beating myself up. So in order for me to forgive someone else, I actually had to forgive myself. Now, I fought it. I did fight it. When I say I was willfully choosing not to forgive, I was really like, but I was hurt, and but this, and but that. And I wanted to tell God over and over again all the reasons why I didn't want to forgive this man for hurting me. And it was because I had set too high expectations for him. But nevertheless, I was arguing. And when I tell you God pursued me around the world, I remember at one point I got off an airplane, I get into someone's car, and the first thing they start talking about within 5 minutes is like forgiveness. I was like, ugh. And it just kept coming up over and over again. I remember I had a dream, and in my dream, I had a very quiet voice. It was very gentle and very quiet. I almost didn't hear it. It was the strangest thing. This voice that told me, if you do not forgive, you can choose to, you can keep, I'm trying to remember the exact words. You can continue to press charges, but if you do not forgive, you may lose everything that you ever wanted. And I didn't understand it at the time. But when I started researching about forgiveness, because things started happening in my life like that went really wrong. And in the book that I am writing, I will be, sharing this in detail, what really went wrong. But in my research, I realized that forgiveness is not something that God takes lightly. So I am speaking from a Christian perspective. So if you're not Christian and you have any questions and you don't understand what I'm speaking about, please feel free to message me. I'd be happy to chat with you and answer any questions. But, God sent his son to this earth to literally die for our sins because he wanted to forgive us. I'm not going to go into the theology here, but because of Jesus, I am forgiven, right? If God is going to give the life of his son, sacrifice his son's life for me because he wants to forgive me, that's like a major commitment. I don't really know how much bigger of a commitment someone could make. So that means that forgiveness is hugely important to God. It means that he's going to take it very seriously. And what I want to share with you is that there are verses that prove how serious this is. It says in the Lord's Prayer, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others. Okay, so those two go together. God forgiving us, we forgiving other people. Also, there are verses in let's see, where did I put my verses? Matthew and Mark. And they basically say, God will not forgive us if we do not forgive others, okay? There's a phrase in English, sharing is caring. Forgiveness is a gift from God. And if we're humans, he doesn't expect us to do it perfectly, but if we really refuse to forgive someone, he's not going to forgive us. This is something that is not often taught in church. It's not often taught that God's not going to listen to your prayers. He's not going to answer your prayers when you are choosing to not forgive someone else. There's really no other way around it. As I had said at the beginning of the video, God said that he will not violate his covenant. He will not alter his word that went from his lips. So that means all the blessings that he's promised us to provide for us, to give us a daily bread, to meet our necessities, to give us the desires of our hearts, all of those things, to give us life and life abundantly, right? All of those blessings that as Christians we quote and we stand on and believe in. As much as those are true, some of the harder things are true. It is what it is what I've learned the hard way. There's no exception to God's word. It's not like we can pick the really good verses for blessing and forget the verses where he says, if you don't forgive others, I'm not forgiving you. I'm not going to be listening to you. If we want our prayers answered, if we want peace, that's it. We have to forgive. So it's a choice. We can choose whatever we want. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is definitely a choice. It's a conscious choice. And it may not be a once and done situation, depending on how deep the pain is, how deeply you were violated by someone. It may literally be a choice that has to be made every single day, maybe even several times a day. And that's okay. That is okay. As long as we are making that choice to forgive and release to God, it's okay. He's going to help us. And I will also say that if it's like something that's really deeply painful, it might be a good idea to get support and to speak with a professional and, get guidance. Sometimes we cannot do this on our own. Sometimes we need someone else's support, whether it's a professional therapist, if it's a coach, if it's a friend. Okay, but it's important that, if you need support with this, if you're really struggling with this, that you reach out to someone so that you don't suffer in silence and someone can help you work through and navigate the whole emotional process. I want to also share a few things that God says about us, like really good things. It says, God's thoughts about us in Psalm 189. God's thoughts about us are good, right? And they are more than all the grains of sand. So think about all the grains of sand on the beach and at the bottom of the ocean floor. I don't even know. That number is unimaginable to me. That's how many good thoughts God has about us. It's like amazing. Someone who thinks that many good things about you has to love you an incredible, beyond like imagination, right? It also says in Isaiah 49 that he has a picture tattooed of us on the palm of each of his hands. So not one hand, but two hands. On each hand, both. God has you and me. As long as we are, Christian, we believe we've accepted his son, Jesus. He has us on his palms, like the palms of his hands. He loves us. We are always before him, right? We're not a stranger to him. We are special to him, right? He loves us. Now, I'm going to flip it a little bit. I will say that the last thing that I've learned about forgiveness and how to forgive I'm a photographer, so I'm going to use a photography metaphor, is to stop taking selfies. Stop looking at the person. And this may be really hard, right? I know I might be asking a lot, but it's possible to do. Stop looking at the person through your eyes. Start looking at them through God's eyes, because if they are a child of God, just like God has me on his palms, what I realized was the person I was angry at, the person I was refusing to forgive, God had him on the palms of his hands. And just like God thinks so many good things about me, as much as God loves me, there's another verse, I forget the exact place where it's found, that says God sings over us. God sings over me. That man is also God's baby too. God's child. He sings over him. And it took me a really long time to understand this. I was listening to Shane and Shane have this song that they do on Psalm 139. And I was using it. I had set my alarm clock to it. It was kind of like soothing and comforting. It gave me peace in a time where I was experiencing deep turmoil and stress from, everything that I was hurting with. And so I would wake up every morning to Shane and Shane's song, Psalms 139. And after listening to it about a year, including like the snooze button, so that was a lot, more than 365 times I listened to it, right? I heard stand out to me so loud one morning about how God had formed us in our mother's womb. And all of a sudden, like something in my brain flipped, and I saw this man through God's eyes, like what that must have been like, and what he must have thought and felt when he was forming this human that I was super pissed at. What it must have been like for God to form him in his mother's womb. And that and something else, which, I will be writing about, is what broke me and helped me move into a place truly of being able to forgive and like not pretend to forgive and be like, I'm not going to be angry and trying to stuff the anger and like forget the anger. Like really just trust that it was going to be okay. And forgive. So I will say, to quick recap, some tips for forgiveness. 1, remember it's a choice. It's a choice that gives us power when we choose it. 2, relax expectations. Our expectations for another human should not be above our expectations for God. 3, I will say, remember whose you are. Remember that God loves you and that he wants the best for you and that he will protect you, right? 4, stop taking selfies. Try looking at this person or situation that hurt you from a different perspective, okay? Imagine how, for me, it was imagining how God had seen this person. For you, it may be imagining it in a different way, but looking at the person from a different perspective. And those steps really helped me. They were huge in my healing journey. And I hope that this video will give you peace and help you in some way. I would love to hear back from you. I would love for you to comment. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. If this supports you, I'd love to hear your story about how it helped you. I'm going to put my contact info underneath this video, and I wish you much peace and joy as you go about your day and then continue on your journey in life. All right. Peace.